Welcome to Globewise Entertainment. Today, we're diving into the 12 greatest British films of all time, as ranked by the British Film Institute. Movies that shaped cinema history and continue to inspire generations. From epic adventures to timeless classics, this list has something for every movie lover. If you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss any of our amazing film journeys. And we want to know, which British film on this list is your favorite? Tell us in the comment box below and join the conversation. 12. The Ladykillers, 1955, BFI ranking one of the greatest British films ever made. In the heart of post-war London, beneath the polite smiles and teacups of everyday life, The Ladykillers delivers one of the most deliciously dark comedies in British cinema history. Released in 1955 and produced by the legendary Ealing Studios, this film proves that British humor doesn't shout, it smiles quietly while plotting chaos. The story centers on a group of criminals who disguise themselves as classical musicians, renting rooms from a sweet, elderly widow, Mrs. Wilberforce. What begins as a harmless arrangement slowly transforms into a brilliant game of deception as the criminals attempt a daring robbery, only to find that their biggest obstacle isn't the police, but the innocent old lady they underestimated. Led by Alec Guinness in one of his most iconic roles, the cast delivers pitch-perfect performances that balance menace with absurdity. Guinness's Professor Marcus is both charming and chilling, while the rest of the gang represents a twisted mirror of post-war British society, greedy, desperate, and hilariously flawed. What makes The Ladykillers truly timeless is its masterful blend of comedy and crime. The film doesn't rely on action or spectacle. Instead, it builds tension through sharp dialogue, visual irony, and unforgettable character moments. Director Alexander McKendrick crafts each scene with precision, turning simple locations, like a cluttered living room or a creaking staircase, into stages for comedic brilliance. Critics and historians consistently rank The Ladykillers among the BFI's greatest British films of all time, and for good reason. Its influence can be felt in modern dark comedies and crime capers across the world. Decades later, the film still feels fresh, clever, and daring, proof that great storytelling never ages. More than just a comedy, The Ladykillers is a reminder of the golden era of British filmmaking, where wit was sharp, characters were unforgettable, and laughter came with a bite. If you're exploring the must-watch classics of British cinema, this film isn't just a recommendation, it's essential viewing. The crime story that kills with kindness and comedy. 11. This Sporting Life, 1963, the brutal soul of British realism. Before British cinema learned to polish its heroes, This Sporting Life dared to break them. Directed by Lindsay Anderson and starring a fiercely intense Richard Harris, this 1963 masterpiece stands as one of the most emotionally raw films ever produced in Britain. Ranked by the BFI among the greatest British films of all time, This Sporting Life isn't about winning trophies, it's about the cost of chasing them. Set against the grim, smoke-stained backdrop of northern England, the film follows Frank McKinn, a coal miner turned professional rugby league star. On the surface, Frank's life looks like a classic rise-from-poverty success story. He earns fame, money, and public admiration. But beneath the cheers of the crowd lies a man driven by anger, loneliness, and emotional illiteracy. Richard Harris delivers a career-defining performance, violent, vulnerable, and painfully human. Frank doesn't know how to love, he only knows how to fight. His toxic relationship with his widowed landlady, played with haunting restraint by Rachel Roberts, becomes the emotional core of the film. Their connection is not romanticized, it's awkward, cruel, and devastatingly real. What makes This Sporting Life so powerful, and still relevant today, is its unflinching honesty. The film strips masculinity down to its bare bones, exposing how pride, class pressure, and emotional repression can destroy lives. There is no Hollywood-style redemption arc here. No easy lessons. Just consequences. Visually, The film is steeped in British New Wave realism, using stark black and white cinematography to mirror Frank's inner emptiness. The rugby scenes feel less like sport and more like warfare, bodies colliding, faces bruised, emotions suppressed. Victory never feels triumphant, it only deepens the damage. At a time when British cinema was redefining itself, this sporting life stood apart as a bold, uncomfortable truth. It challenged audiences to confront the emotional cost of ambition and the silence forced upon working-class men. Even decades later, this film remains a must-watch, not because it's easy to enjoy, but because it's impossible to forget. If you appreciate powerful performances, socially relevant storytelling, and films that leave a lasting emotional impact, This Sporting Life, 1963, is essential viewing and a cornerstone of Britain's cinematic legacy. Which British classic hits you the hardest? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more BFI-ranked must-watch films from Globewise Entertainment. Number 10. The Red Shoes, 1948, a spellbinding British masterpiece of art, passion, and obsession. Few films in cinema history blur the line between dream and reality as beautifully as The Red Shoes. Ranked among the greatest British films ever made by the BFI, this 1948 classic isn't just a movie, it's a visual ballet of emotion, ambition, and sacrifice that still captivates audiences decades later. Directed by legendary British filmmakers Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, The Red Shoes tells the haunting story of Victoria Page, a young ballerina torn between her love for dance and her love for a man. Inspired by Hans Christian Andersen's famous fairy tale, the film transforms a simple moral story into a powerful meditation on art, obsession, and the cost of greatness. What truly sets The Red Shoes apart is its groundbreaking use of color and music. At a time when most films were still visually conservative, this movie exploded onto the screen with vivid Technicolor, creating one of the most famous dance sequences in film history. The central ballet performance, lasting nearly 15 minutes, remains a benchmark of cinematic innovation, influencing filmmakers like Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, and Darren Aronofsky. But beneath its beauty lies a darker truth. The Red Shoes asks a timeless question. What happens when your passion demands everything? The film's tragic emotional core reflects the brutal reality faced by artists who must choose between personal happiness and professional perfection. Critically acclaimed and endlessly rewatched, The Red Shoes is more than a British classic. It's a global cinematic treasure. Its legacy lives on in modern cinema, fashion, music videos, and even contemporary ballet productions. Even today, The Red Shoes feels bold, modern, and emotionally intense, proving that great storytelling is truly timeless. If you love films that combine art, drama, romance, and unforgettable visuals, this is a must-watch experience. A masterpiece that doesn't just entertain, it mesmerizes. 9. The Long Good Friday, 1980, when power meets its breaking point. Few British films capture the pulse of London, the illusion of power, and the cost of ambition as masterfully as The Long Good Friday. Ranked among the BFI's greatest British films of all time, this 1980 crime classic is more than just a gangster movie. It's a portrait of a man, a city, and an era on the edge of transformation. At the center of the story is Harold Shand, played with unforgettable intensity by Bob Hoskins in a career-defining performance. Harold is a self-made London crime boss who believes the future belongs to him. With the city preparing for economic growth and international investment, he dreams of leaving the shadows of the underworld behind and becoming a legitimate businessman. But just as everything seems to be lining up perfectly, everything starts to go wrong. A series of unexplained attacks disrupt Harold's carefully controlled empire. Associates disappear. Deals collapse. Trust erodes. What follows is a relentless race against time as Harold desperately tries to identify who is threatening his kingdom and why. The brilliance of The Long Good Friday lies in how it slowly tightens the tension, transforming confidence into paranoia and power into vulnerability. Director John Mackenzie crafts the film with sharp realism, using London itself as a character, gritty, ambitious, and uncertain. The movie reflects a Britain standing at the crossroads of old criminal traditions and a new globalized future. Every scene feels grounded, urgent, and painfully human. Equally powerful is Helen Mirren's performance as Victoria, Harold's intelligent and composed partner. Unlike typical crime film roles of the era, she is not merely standing behind the king, she understands the world changing around them far better than he does. Her calm contrasts brilliantly with Harold's growing desperation. And then comes the ending. The final moments of The Long Good Friday are considered among the greatest endings in British cinema history, a wordless sequence that says more about power, pride, and downfall than pages of dialogue ever could. It leaves the audience unsettled, thoughtful, and deeply impressed. Decades later, The Long Good Friday remains essential viewing, not just as a crime film, but as a timeless study of ambition, identity, and the price of believing you are untouchable. If you want to understand why British cinema is respected worldwide, this film is not optional, it's mandatory. 8. Withnail and I, 1987, a cult classic of British cinema. Few British films capture the chaos, comedy, and quiet despair of youth as perfectly as Withnail and I. Ranked among the BFI's greatest British films of all time, this 1987 cult masterpiece is not just a comedy, it's a bittersweet portrait of friendship, ambition, and artistic struggle. Set in late 1960s London, the film follows two unemployed actors, Withnail, flamboyant, self-destructive, and brilliantly quotable, and I, his more grounded and observant companion. Trapped in a run-down Camden flat, drowning their frustrations in alcohol and shattered dreams, the pair escape to the English countryside for what they hope will be a peaceful retreat. Instead, they find discomfort, hostility, and an uncomfortable confrontation with their own uncertain futures. What makes Withnail and I truly timeless is its razor-sharp dialogue and unforgettable performances, especially Richard E. Grant, whose portrayal of Withnail is widely considered one of the greatest comic performances in British film history. Every line feels iconic, endlessly requotable, and surprisingly profound beneath the humor. But beneath the laughter lies something deeper. The film quietly explores the fear of growing up, the pain of unrealized talent, and the moment when friendship begins to change. Its final scene, simple, poetic, and heartbreaking, has become one of the most memorable endings in cinema, symbolizing the end of youth and the beginning of an uncertain adult world. Decades later, Withnail and I remains a cult phenomenon, beloved by filmmakers, critics, and audiences alike. It's a film that grows richer with every viewing, funny on the surface, tragic underneath, and deeply human at its core. If you love smart British comedy, unforgettable characters, and films that leave a lasting emotional impact, Withnail and I is not just a must-watch, it's an experience that defines British cinema itself. 7. Black Narcissus, 1947. When Faith Meets Desire in the Shadows of the Himalayas. Released in 1947, Black Narcissus is not just one of the greatest British films ever made, it's a cinematic masterpiece of atmosphere, psychology, and visual storytelling. Ranked by the British Film Institute, BFI, as one of the most essential films in British cinema history, this haunting drama continues to mesmerize audiences even decades later. Set high in the Himalayan mountains, the story follows a group of Anglican nuns who attempt to establish a convent in a remote palace once occupied by a prince's harem. Led by the composed yet emotionally fragile Sister Clodagh, the mission seems noble on the surface, but the mountain air carries something darker. As isolation deepens and suppressed memories resurface, the convent becomes a battleground between discipline and desire, faith and temptation. The environment itself feels alive. Winds howl, bells echo, and the vast landscapes intensify the inner turmoil of the characters. Nowhere is this conflict more chilling than in the descent of Sister Ruth, whose unraveling psyche leads to one of the most unforgettable character transformations in classic cinema. What makes Black Narcissus truly legendary is its groundbreaking use of color. Shot almost entirely on studio sets in England, the film creates an illusion of towering mountains and endless skies through masterful matte paintings and lighting. The bold reds, icy blues, and shadow-drenched corridors weren't just visually striking, they were emotional signals, guiding the audience through fear, obsession, and spiritual crisis. Director Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger crafted a film far ahead of its time, exploring female psychology, repression, and identity with rare sensitivity and courage. At a time when such themes were considered risky, Black Narcissus dared to confront them head-on, earning critical acclaim and influencing generations of filmmakers, from Martin Scorsese to Francis Ford Coppola. Even today, the film's legacy remains powerful. Its restoration and re-release introduced it to modern audiences, proving that great cinema doesn't age, it evolves. Black Narcissus isn't just a film you watch, it's a film you experience. If you love visually rich cinema, deep psychological storytelling, and films that challenge the soul, Black Narcissus, 1947, is an absolute must-watch, and a shining jewel in British film history. 6. 1968. A rebellion that changed British cinema forever. Released in 1968, isn't just a film, it's a bold statement, a cinematic uprising that shattered the polite image of British cinema forever. Directed by Lindsay Anderson and starring a young, electrifying Malcolm McDowell, this groundbreaking masterpiece captured the restless spirit of an entire generation. Set within the rigid walls of a traditional British boarding school, follows Mick Travis, a rebellious student who quietly questions authority, conformity, and the oppressive systems that shape young minds. What begins as subtle defiance slowly builds into something far more powerful, a symbolic explosion of resistance. What made it so revolutionary was its fearless storytelling. The film blends realism with surreal fantasy, shifting effortlessly between color and black and white, blurring the line between imagination and reality. This daring technique reflected the chaos and confusion of the era, a time when young people around the world were challenging long-standing institutions. When it won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, it shocked critics and audiences alike. British cinema had never seen anything quite like it. The film didn't offer easy answers. Instead, it forced viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about power, obedience, and freedom. Even decades later, remains unsettling, provocative, and painfully relevant. Its themes of rebellion against unjust systems still resonate in schools, workplaces, and societies across the world. That lasting impact is exactly why the British Film Institute ranks it among the greatest British films of all time. This isn't a movie you simply watch, it's a movie you experience, one that challenges you long after the final frame fades to black. If rebellion has a voice in British cinema, 1968 is where it began. 5. Kes, 1969. A quiet masterpiece that speaks louder than words. Released in 1969 and directed by the legendary Ken Loach, Kes is not just one of the greatest British films ever made, it's one of the most honest portraits of working-class life ever put on screen. Ranked among the very best by the British Film Institute, Kes remains a timeless story of hope, dignity, and fragile dreams. Set in the coal mining town of Barnsley, England, the film follows Billy Casper, a neglected working-class schoolboy growing up in a world that offers him very little. Billy struggles at school, faces bullying, and lives under the shadow of an unforgiving home life. His future seems already written, until something extraordinary happens. Billy finds a young kestrel hawk, which he names Kes. As he secretly trains the bird, we witness a powerful transformation. For the first time, Billy discovers purpose, patience, and freedom. The bond between boy and bird becomes a symbol of everything he lacks: choice, respect, and the chance to rise above his circumstances. What makes Kes truly unforgettable is its raw realism. There's no Hollywood gloss, no forced sentimentality, just natural performances, authentic Yorkshire dialects, and deeply human moments that feel almost documentary-like. Young actor David Bradley delivers a quietly brilliant performance, making Billy one of British cinema's most relatable and heartbreaking characters. The film's emotional power lies in its restraint. Kes doesn't tell you how to feel, it lets reality speak for itself. And when the story reaches its devastating conclusion, it leaves a lasting impact that stays with viewers long after the credits roll. More than 5 decades later, Kes remains painfully relevant. It's a film about lost potential, social inequality, and the small moments of beauty that keep hope alive. This is British cinema at its most sincere, uncompromising, poetic, and profoundly moving. If you've never seen Kes, it's not just a must-watch, it's an essential experience. And if you have, it's a film that deserves to be revisited again and again. 4. Don't Look Now, 1973. A British masterpiece of grief, fear, and fate. Few British films have haunted audiences quite like Don't Look Now, Nicholas Regg's 1973 psychological thriller that continues to rank among the BFI's greatest films of all time. More than just a horror movie, this is a deeply emotional, intellectually rich experience, one that lingers in your mind long after the credits roll. Set against the fog-drenched canals and crumbling beauty of Venice, the film follows John and Laura Baxter, brilliantly played by Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, a married couple trying to survive the devastating loss of their young daughter. What begins as a quiet story of grief slowly transforms into something far more unsettling. Strange visions, ominous warnings, and eerie coincidences blur the line between reality and the supernatural, pulling the audience into a state of constant unease. What makes Don't Look Now so powerful and endlessly rewatchable is its masterful editing and visual storytelling. Regg uses fragmented timelines, symbolic imagery, and subtle foreshadowing to create a sense of dread without relying on cheap scares. Every shot feels intentional. Every detail matters. This intelligent, layered approach is exactly why the film remains a favorite among critics, film students, and serious cinema lovers. The film is also famous for its bold, realistic portrayal of marriage and intimacy, which adds emotional depth and authenticity to the story. Instead of sensationalism, the focus remains on human vulnerability, making the horror feel personal and profoundly disturbing. This mature, story-driven style keeps the film advertiser-friendly while appealing to high-value audiences who appreciate classic, prestige cinema. Decades later, Don't Look Now still influences modern filmmakers and regularly appears on must-watch lists worldwide. It's not just one of the greatest British films ever made, it's a timeless meditation on loss, love, and the terrifying idea that fate cannot be escaped. If you're exploring the BFI-ranked greatest British films of all time, Don't Look Now isn't just a recommendation, it's essential viewing. 3. A Matter of Life and Death, 1946, BFI ranked a timeless British masterpiece. Imagine surviving death itself, then being asked to justify your right to love. Released just after World War II, A Matter of Life and Death is not merely a film, it's a poetic experience that blurs the line between fantasy, romance, and philosophy. Directed by the legendary duo Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, this British classic remains one of the most imaginative and emotionally powerful films ever made. The story follows Peter Carter, a British RAF pilot who should have died after his plane was shot down during the war. Through a cosmic error, Peter survives and falls deeply in love with June, the American radio operator who heard his final words over the airwaves. But heaven soon realizes its mistake. Peter is summoned to the afterlife to stand trial and explain why he deserves to stay alive. What unfolds is a breathtaking courtroom drama set between Earth and the afterlife, where love is weighed against fate, duty, and destiny. Why this film is a British classic. What makes A Matter of Life and Death truly unforgettable is its groundbreaking visual storytelling. The film famously contrasts Technicolor scenes on Earth with stunning black and white sequences in heaven, symbolizing emotion versus logic, passion versus order. This creative choice was revolutionary in 1946, and still feels bold today. Beyond its visuals, the film delivers a powerful post-war message. At a time when Britain was healing from loss and trauma, the story offered hope, suggesting that love, compassion, and humanity transcend borders, politics, and even death itself. A film ahead of its time. The movie subtly explores themes of the psychological cost of war, international unity, British and American perspectives, mental health and survivor's guilt, the idea that love is the strongest argument of all. These themes feel just as relevant today, making the film timeless rather than dated. Legacy and cultural impact. Regularly ranked by the British Film Institute, BFI, among the greatest British films ever made, A Matter of Life and Death influenced generations of filmmakers, from Martin Scorsese to Christopher Nolan. Its mix of fantasy and realism paved the way for countless modern films that explore life, death, and love in unconventional ways. Why you must watch it? If you love films that tell deep, emotional stories, combine romance with big ideas, showcase classic British cinema at its finest, then A Matter of Life and Death is an absolute must-watch. It's not just about cheating death, it's about proving that life and love are worth fighting for. A true British masterpiece that continues to move audiences across generations. 2. The Third Man, 1949. The masterclass in noir and suspense. Few films capture post-war Europe's tension and intrigue like The Third Man, directed by the legendary Carol Reed and penned by Graham Greene. This 1949 classic isn't just a movie, it's an experience. Set against the shadowy, war-torn streets of Vienna, the story follows Holly Martins, a naive writer arriving to reunite with his friend Harry Lime, only to discover that Lime's life is far more complicated and dangerous than he imagined. What makes The Third Man unforgettable isn't just its twisting plot of mystery and betrayal, it's the atmosphere. The haunting zither score by Anton Karas instantly sets a mood of suspense, while the cinematography uses skewed angles and dramatic shadows to make Vienna a city of secrets and moral ambiguity. Every frame feels like a painting of intrigue, keeping audiences on edge from start to finish. And then there's Orson Welles as Harry Lime, charismatic, sinister, and utterly magnetic. His presence alone elevates the film into a timeless study of charm, corruption, and the blurred lines between right and wrong. The Third Man is more than a thriller, it's a masterclass in tension, storytelling, and style. Whether you're a fan of classic cinema or new to British films, this is one you must watch. Its influence stretches from modern noir to blockbuster thrillers, proving why the BFI ranks it among the greatest British films of all time. Pro tip: if you love films with unforgettable scores, tension-filled plots, and morally complex characters, The Third Man is a cinematic treasure you cannot miss. 1. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. When it comes to cinematic masterpieces, few films have achieved the epic grandeur and timeless acclaim of Lawrence of Arabia. Directed by the legendary David Lean, this 1962 classic remains a pinnacle of British filmmaking, and it's no surprise that the British Film Institute, BFI, ranks it among the greatest films ever made. The movie chronicles the extraordinary life of T.E. Lawrence, a British officer whose daring exploits during World War I in the Arabian Peninsula captured the imagination of the world. Starring the unforgettable Peter O'Toole in the title role, Lawrence is depicted as a complex, enigmatic figure, brilliant, ambitious, and at times morally conflicted. What sets Lawrence of Arabia apart isn't just its gripping story, but its breathtaking visuals. Shot across the vast deserts of Jordan and Morocco, the sweeping cinematography by Freddie Young turns every frame into a work of art. The epic battle sequences, majestic desert vistas, and the iconic scene of Lawrence crossing the desert dunes alone are etched into cinematic history. The film's score, composed by Maurice Jarre, amplifies every moment, giving audiences a sense of scale, emotion, and grandeur rarely seen in cinema. Its runtime may be long, over 3 hours, but every second feels purposeful, immersing viewers in a world of political intrigue, personal ambition, and cultural clash. Lawrence of Arabia isn't just a movie, it's an experience. Its exploration of identity, heroism, and the cost of greatness resonates even decades later, reminding us why British cinema continues to influence filmmakers worldwide. Winning 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director, it's a testament to the enduring power of storytelling at its finest. If you haven't watched this masterpiece yet, prepare to be transported into a world of epic adventure, mesmerizing visuals, and unforgettable performances. Truly, Lawrence of Arabia is a must-watch for every film lover and a shining jewel of British cinema. And that's a wrap on the 12 greatest British films of all time, according to the BFI. From epic adventures like Lawrence of Arabia to timeless classics that shaped cinema, British filmmaking has given the world stories that continue to inspire, thrill, and captivate audiences everywhere. If you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, hit that subscribe button now and join our community of movie lovers. We want to hear from you. Which of these iconic British films is your favorite? Drop your pick in the comment box below and let's start a conversation. Stay tuned for more cinematic journeys, hidden gems, and ultimate film rankings right here on Globewise Entertainment.